Welcome to the training on campus test monitoring procedures for central administrators. Training session. We hope that you'll be able to understand your obligations to maintain test security and confidentiality of assessment materials. And second of all, to know the basic procedures for monitoring campuses during testing. So we want to make sure that you understand what your responsibilities are when you visit campuses. And then finally, we want you to understand what your responsibilities are to notify the campus test coordinators and the district test coordinator of any improper testing procedures that you might encounter. Let's take a look at the two terms test security and confidentiality in regards to state testing. First of all, test security has to do with the fact that tests must be securely stored or under supervision of appropriately trained personnel at all times. Confidentiality has to do with the fact that the contents of tests that may be seen inadvertently through the test administration process and student results cannot be improperly viewed or discussed by people that don't have an educational need to see that information or have not been appropriately trained. Anyone observing any violations in test security or confidentiality must report them to the campus testing coordinator or the district testing coordinator in order to make sure that everyone involved knows exactly what may have happened. And in fact, if you do not report them and you've observed things such as that, then you may come under scrutiny. So it's important that everybody reports those should they see something that's out of the ordinary. If people are in violation of test security and confidentiality issues, then they may receive an inscription on their certificate, or their certificate could actually be revoked by SBEC. Finally, if you are visiting campuses, you must make sure that you have signed a security oath. If you did not receive training from the district testing coordinator on test safety or security and confidentiality, then you must sign a separate oath and turn that into the assessment office prior to visiting school sites. All right, let's take a look at what happens on testing days and look at the responsibilities of various people in the organization in terms of test administration. On the lower end of the hierarchy are those test administrators. These are the people who are actively monitoring students during testing. They are managing test materials and ensuring that students are tested in the proper manner. The test administrators then are monitored by the campus testing coordinator and the campus administrators, and so they are monitoring those administrators before, during, and after testing, during the checkout of materials, during the actual test, and then after testing to ensure that all of the materials are managed in the proper way. Now, the district testing coordinator has the job of monitoring all the activities of the campus testing coordinators as well as the campus administrators around testing. And so that person's job involves things before, during, and after testing, including the check-in of testing materials from campuses. So your job fits in along the line of the district testing coordinator because you are an extension of their job to monitor the campus testing coordinators as well as the campus administrators to make sure everything's operating properly at the campus level. So you serve as an extension to the DTC in making sure that procedures are being followed at the campus level. So let's take a look at the actual procedures that you're going to follow when you visit campuses on days of testing. First of all, your main job is to observe those campus activities that are occurring to make sure that the proper procedures are being followed. And later on in this presentation, you'll know what those proper procedures are and things to be checking for, as well as having a checklist to look for those. The second thing is if you see anything that seems out of accord with what's supposed to be going on campuses, that you would report any violations or concerns to the principal, the campus testing coordinator, as well as the district testing coordinator. Now, if there are severe issues going on, we would hope that you would call the DTC right away. Otherwise, if you could report those on the checklist and the form that you'll turn back into the assessment office. Now, it's important to note that your job there is to observe and report rather than to enforce. So if you see something going on, please do not feel that it's your responsibility to tell someone about what they should be doing, but rather you need to report that to the appropriate personnel who supervise those test administrators or whoever is part of the procedures, and making sure that they know so that they can take care of those issues. Okay, so let's take a look at exactly what you'll be doing on the day that you visit campuses. Prior to visiting campuses, of course, we'll need you to complete this particular training video. And if you haven't already done so as a result of training that was provided by the district testing coordinator, you'll need to sign a monitor oath and send that to the DTC via intercampus mail, so that we'll have record of the fact that you have completed this training. The next thing to do is to familiarize yourself with the campus monitoring checklist, and you'll receive an electronic version of that. So you'll need to print a copy of that and take that to campuses with you. And then finally, when you're going to campuses, you'll need to make sure that you're clearly identified as a BISD personnel, so that people will know that you're there and the proper reason that you're there. All right, let's take a look at the actual procedures once you go to visit campuses. In terms of the time period, you'll want to go during the time that they're actually testing. So that'll be sometime in the morning. Elementaries typically will get started about 8:45 or so, and getting students fed breakfast and then settle down in their classrooms and started. Middle schools will be a little bit later in the day because they do start later. High schools start at 7:30. They typically get started fairly early, so if you can get there by 8 o'clock, you should be fine. So first thing you need to do is to check in at the school office and let them know that who you are and why you're there, and ask them to direct you to the principal or the campus testing coordinator so that you can inform them of your visit and why you're there. They'll be notified, of course, that you'll be showing up, but just to let them know that you're there, and that you'll be monitoring what's going on testing day. Then the next step would be to walk all of the hallways where testing is taking place. We want you to observe each classroom. You don't have to go in the classrooms, but we do want you to look through the window and see what's going on inside the classroom, make sure that they have signs on the door and other things, and make sure that you ask them about any online testing that may be going on, because you'll need to walk by those classrooms where that's taking place as well. Then if you see anything that might be out of accord with what's supposed to be going on based on the checklist, you need to make sure that you note them and inform the principal and the CTC of what you're seeing. So for example, if you go to a classroom and there's not a sign on the door that says that testing is in progress, you need to inform them of that and let them know which classroom that might be. Before you leave the campus, you'll need to obtain the signature of the CTC or the campus administrator, noting what you observed and that they have looked over that and made sure that they have provided their signature so that we have record of that. And then finally, before you leave, make sure you thank the campus personnel for their assistance. If you happen to be the first one to go to a campus during the testing season, we usually have some sort of goodie bag for the CTC. So if you're going out to campuses on the first day, we're going to ask that you come by the assessment office and pick up those goodie bags for those CTCs, or if you're unable to come by, just let us know and we'll bring those out to you so that you can give them to the campus testing coordinators. So as you walk campuses, again, you'll be going down all the hallways where testing is actually taking place. And so your job is to check those testing rooms to make sure that all the procedures are being followed. First of all, you're going to only look from the hallway where we do not want you to enter the classroom and disturb the testing procedures going on, and so you'll make sure that you stay in the hallway, but ask them about any small group administrations, because sometimes those are forgotten, and also the online testing. I want to remind you about that. So the things you need to look for is there a do not disturb sign posted on the door that has to do with the testing procedures that are required by the state, and also is the window free from obstruction, so that you can easily view what's going on in the classroom. Sometimes teachers have a tendency to put things up in the window so kids in the hallway can't look in or their kids can't look out. Well, those should all be pulled down before testing so that you can easily see in the classroom without having to actually enter the classroom. Also, the third thing you need to look for is that the teacher is actively monitoring students, and we'll talk about exactly what that looks like in a second. So as you're looking in the window of the door of classrooms where testing is going on, you should ensure that the test monitor or the test administrator is actively monitoring the students. That includes moving around the room, not just sitting at their desk all the time, and checking whether students are working on the correct portion of the test booklet and answer document. So they may be looking over at what students have on their desk. They also should be looking to see if students are using telephones or other non-allowable items on the test, recognizing the fact that you probably aren't going to know that just by looking through the window, but nonetheless, those are the duties of the test administrator during active monitoring. Also, they may be picking up booklets when students are finished with the test and checking over those to make sure that the information is properly bubbled on the front of the answer documents. However, you should not see test administrators reading books, newspapers, using their telephone, working on the computer. They should be either sitting there watching what students are doing or moving around the room. In addition to the monitoring of classrooms, there's other monitoring that we're going to ask you to do, and that has to do with the campus as a whole. Recall that the CTC and the campus administrators, their job on testing day is to monitor what's going on in the classroom, so you should see them out and about and walking around and ensuring that everything is operating smoothly and that people are being adequately given breaks and those types of things. So they shouldn't be sitting in an office someplace. They should be out in the hallways and monitoring what's going on. You should see other monitors in the hallway, places like restrooms or outside near portables, so that students, when they need to have a break from the test and go to the restroom, that they're monitored at all times. So it's important that you take a look at what the other staff are doing during this time, who are required to ensure that appropriate testing procedures are being followed. The hallway monitors shouldn't be reading, using their phones, working on computers. They should be actively involved in the process and watching students and ensuring that students are not talking to one another or doing anything that might interrupt the security of the test. Then finally, the campus should be a quiet and orderly testing environment. Shouldn't be a lot of hectic things going on during this time. So that's something else that we're going to ask you to take a look at and see if they're maintaining a quiet and orderly testing environment. Okay, let's finish up by talking about how you would finish up your campus visit. First of all, you'd want to notify the DTC immediately if you find any major concerns. And finally, you're going to return the signed monitoring visit form to the assessment office. So I'd like to thank you for your assistance in monitoring campuses during testing. It's an invaluable service that you're providing for the DTC and the assessment office. And your help is going to help improve the district monitoring campus testing procedures and also provide support to campuses to maintain a quality testing environment. So again, thank you and happy monitoring.